Hi, I'm Andrew Rich, and if you're like me, you look at the state of modern wrestling discourse and think, wow, what a cesspool. That's why I'm here to tell you about Music of the Mat Remix. That's right, your favorite wrestling music podcast is back with a new format, where I bring on a guest and we play songs related to wrestling-themed topics. It could be a wrestling reference, a wrestling concept, a wrestling pun, things of that nature. Now you might be saying, Andrew, that is a very, very tenuous connection to pro wrestling on a wrestling podcast network. Is this just an excuse to hang out with your friends and talk about music and ignore the rest of the wrestling landscape? Yes. Yes, it is. So listen to Music of the Mat Remix on the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network, available on Apple, Spotify, or your podcast player of choice.
Early holiday savings have arrived at Tanger Outlets. Discover the best gifts from your favorite brands, perfect for everyone on your list. And stack your savings with up to 70% off, plus an extra 15 to 25% off only during Tanger Style. Save at Polo Ralph Lauren, Old Navy Outlet, Under Armour, Skechers, J. Crew Factory, and more. Hurry in. These early holiday deals last through November 24th. Tanger Outlets. More savings, more cheer.
This podcast is a member of the Voices of Wrestling Podcasting Network. Visit voicesofwrestling.com to hear the rest of our great podcasts, as well as show reviews, columns, opinions, and updates across the world of wrestling.
Hey there, Thunder Buddies and Travelers down Thunder Road. It's us, Days of Thunder, the WCW Thunder rewatch podcast that you didn't ask for, but we did anyway. Coming as part of the Voices of Wrestling podcast network and powered by largemanappears.com. I'm your host, your half-ass bash at the beach 1996 on Thunder Road, Dave Ryan. I'm joined, as I am every week, by my faithful co-host, he's Staggerly Maloney. How are you this week?
I mean, living up to my name this week, full on staggering around the place.
You are, yeah. You have done yourself an injury. We won't labour the point too much because we do talk about it on this year's Arquette-a-Ween over at largemanappears.com, dropping Halloween night. But yeah, suffice to say, you're hopped up on goofballs at the moment because you've blown out your hamstring.
Yeah, so like I said, living up to the full-on stagger name. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm good. This is, to give a little peek behind the curtain, this is our second podcast in a two-podcast series of what we're doing on a Saturday night. So, you know, he's living the dream.
He's getting the excuses out of the way because it has been noted, it's finally been picked up upon how sleepy Lee is getting with these having to watch these bad Thunders and record them late at night with me. He's losing some of that lust for life and has been spotted yawning on the broadcast.
Yeah, I'm going to have to be a lot more liberal with the mute button, I think.
Yeah, but it's for most people it's the cough button. Mm-hmm. It's the Lee has his sleepies button here on this show, I think.
Listen, when you have to wake up at 5 a.m. to go to work, and then we don't record until late at night.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is the dedication to the bit. Is that you work early parts of the day, I work late parts of the day. Literally, the only window for recording is post 10 p.m.
Yeah,
and we do try to double dip, double bill them, so that we don't ever miss a week. And that is going to be going to mixed results so far. Fucking phenomenally unreliable men. It has to be said. I don't think there's been too much of a notice on the listeners. Like sometimes they're getting their podcast on a Sunday instead of a Wednesday. That's about the notice. They're still getting it within the 7-day period.
Yeah.
But there's still that old ad is still. I need to talk to Rich because we sent in a new bumper for the show to Rich, and it's still the old bumper saying we're every second Tuesday. I think it used to say the old.
Was not every second Thursday.
Could be every second, whatever. Yeah. Every second Thursday. And we have not. I can't remember the last time we landed on a Thursday on all the podcast apps.
Also, the fact that there is like 107 different VOW podcasts that come out on a Thursday as well.
Yeah. Like there's so much fucking like this is like not us bigging ourselves up as a network, but there is so much quality programming.
Yes.
That it's like we don't want to like have a choke point of a day where like us the flagship 5-star match game and like a bunch of shit are all dropping on the same day.
Mike and JD shake them ropes.
The process of like from my point of view, right, the process this isn't to be like poor me because like, you know, like white man with a podcast, how do I really suffer in the grand scheme of things, but like the process of like I'm so done with the episodes by the time we're done. I love the feedback, I love chatting about, you know, how people are enjoying the episodes and stuff like that, but in terms of my workload, the process of like watching a show sometimes multiple times, taking notes, like again, I think I was saying recently, like about 2,500 words per show, reading the full Observer, recording the show, editing the show, writing the show notes and everything, and then submitting it. If at that point of me being completely done with this process, Rich goes, "Do you mind if we drop on Saturday instead?" I'm like, "Rich, I don't care. It's out of my hands now. I don't care. Once the listeners are getting the show, I absolutely don't care."
Yeah.
I prefer once it's hours where I'm awake and I can hit the tweet button to let people know it's out there for the 4 people that are still left on twitter.com.
I believe there was another exodus this week for like, was there some reason, some terms and conditions were changed?
Oh yes, well they have changed what Block does now because Block doesn't block people anymore.
Is this because Elon wasn't getting enough views again?
So if you block somebody, so all the people Lee has blocked on our account are going to be delighted because they're going to be able to see our tweets again. They just can't interact with our tweets.
Oh, can I see?
Somebody said,
can I see Jim Cornette's tweets again?
And Edge's tweets, yes. And the great thing about it is like the absolute dummies at the everything app, twitter.com, is like, so as somebody pointed out very quickly, if only there was a way to dunk on someone's tweet through a block now, and somebody pointed out like screenshotting is now like you could just screenshot somebody's tweet that has you blocked because you can see the tweets now. So that's a way you're essentially quote tweeting them without quote tweeting.
Yep.
Fucking dumbest app.
And even though you're blocked, you can still at somebody, can't you?
I'm not. I don't know. I'm sure. Why not?
Like, there's nothing to stop you on the app going at the Jim Cornette experience.
Yeah, I don't know if they get the
and sharing a
notification
screenshot.
anymore.
Maybe
they
don't.
They get the notification, but if you searched the at, it would come up. But yeah. I don't know. Fucking stupid app anyway. Hey, do you want a hot piping bit of snack talk?
Always into the snack talk.
Okay, so monumental news for Ireland. The McRib is back.
Is it?
The McRib has not been back on these shores in quite a number of years.
And I mean, I think we've talked about this on the podcast before. The first time I ever had the McRib was, in fact, in Oberhausen, the first year we went to Tag League.
Now, I have my theories on why the McRib isn't back here very often. Do you have any?
No. Over
here, there is a subgenre of takeaway known as the chipper. In the UK, they would be known as chip shops or chippies, depending on what part of that land you are in. A standard menu item in almost every chipper in Ireland is what's called a rib steak sandwich, which is a fucking McRib. So I have a feeling that the reason it's not back as often here is because I don't think it's in as high a demand, because you can just get a rib steak any day of the fucking week here in multiple locations in almost any town in Ireland.
That said, have you ever witnessed anyone order a rib steak from a chipper?
So I have, and this is going to be my other hot take. I enjoy the McRib. Don't get me wrong. McRib fans, get out of my mentions right now, because I like the McRib. The Irish chipper rib steak sandwich is better.
See, I've never had one, so I can't compare.
It is better. Try one. Get back to me. We could do a tag up on this.
Oh yeah, you'd be happy to meet up for a fucking rib steak sandwich.
Actually, you work in the town where I have bought many a rib steak in my life.
I know, yeah.
If you go to either the Central Grill or Rozzie's here in the town, I can vouch personally for those rib steaks.
Rozzie's.
Yeah, it's on the back street. It's the one we used to go to. So you used to be able to get for €2.20 when I was in school. You could get a rib steak and a can. So you go get your Fanta, get a rib steak for $2.20. Like, when you're a broke student, that's fucking manna from heaven. That is
insane.
Especially when all you're getting in the lunchbox at that stage. What was your tradition like when you were in secondary school, our equivalent of high school? This is something we should note as well for our American listeners in particular. You know the way you all have cafeterias and canteens with, in a lot of them, my understanding is free food.
Mm-hmm.
That is not the fucking case in Ireland.
Nope.
I don't think I heard of a non-private school with a canteen until 5-6+ years after I was out of school. The school I went to has a canteen in it now. You do have to pay, but it is like subsidized.
Yeah, that's the same with my son's school that he's going to be going into in September of next year.
Fuck.
I know, yeah. They have a full-on subsidized canteen with like many options, but they're also catering to a school of like 600 or 700 kids. So by the time you actually get your food from the canteen, I believe that the lunch break is pretty much over.
Yeah. So for you and I, primary school to the end of secondary school. Well, I don't know how close you were to your house from your school, but for me anyway, it was packed lunches the whole way through. There was no option. Like, even though all of secondary school, I was allowed to go downtown or leave the school for lunch for my hour, I could not, because I was a whole town away from my house. I was never calling back home to have food. So it was a packed lunch every day. Was it the same for you?
No, God, no. My secondary school was a brisk 10-minute walk from my home. And
so would you go home for lunch?
Yeah, we would get a 40-minute lunch, and depending on if you had class first period after lunch, and depending on what class it was, you may not go back until such a time that suited you. Oh.
We had a full hour for lunch in our school.
We had 40 minutes.
Yeah, I'm finding out the full hour was quite unusual. The more schools I talked to, and like a lot of schools really used COVID as an excuse to shorten lunch breaks and lengthen classes. A lot of secondary schools now are hour-long classes.
Yeah,
our classes were 40-minute as standard.
Yeah, see, we had 40-minute classes, and that's why the 40-minute break was like, yeah, that's just it's fine.
Another period, yeah.
But my son's school, he's gone into their 57-minute classes, and they then get a 3-minute window to get from one class to the other.
Yeah, so this was a lot of this in Irish secondary schools was a COVID thing. A lot of secondary schools as well have one-way systems for going through the corridors now that were instituted during social distancing, and they just kept them because this rule of law suits them.
Well,
but I just find it very funny that
we had that in school where you had to walk on the left-hand side. And
we didn't. It was just
nobody
bedlam
did
in our school. Yeah,
I mean, it was just bedlam.
It's funny because like I think the average attention span of a teenager is something like 20 minutes. And so like if 40-minute classes was a stretch, and I taught classes when I was a teacher, I used to teach 40-minute classes, and those were a fucking pain in the hole. So I can only imagine trying to get people to focus for an hour at a time is so fucking rough. Mm-hmm. But anyway, where I was going at was, what was your usual school lunch? So you'd obviously pop home and you might have some different things. Were there go-tos for you for your school lunch?
No. I mean, there was a great butchers in where I grew up, and they would do a mean breakfast roll. So that would be the busiest. Like, the result of the chipper that would be open in the local shops as well.
Yeah. By the way, once again, for American listeners, we may have talked about them before, but the Irish delicacy of the breakfast roll, which is essentially a French bread baguette, opened, slatherings of butter and or ketchup.
Yep.
And then essentially the entire contents of a full Irish breakfast poured inside.
Yeah, so you would have a breakfast roll would by standard be 2 or 3 sausages depending on where you go, 1 or 2 bacon, an egg,
and then
and pudding.
Rashers and sausages are the ones that almost everyone agrees upon, and then you will have some people will like an egg on theirs, fried egg usually.
Yep.
Some people will like a bit of white or black pudding, blood sausage. And some people will like a hash brown.
Yeah, no, we didn't get hash browns in the local butchers. So the local butcher was only a small little shop, but the queue at lunchtime would be out the door because they had a separate counter where you could go in and get your breakfast roll, or, listen to this, a dinner roll.
Ooh.
Which would have multiples of the breakfast roll. So if there was 2 sausages on a breakfast roll, you would get 4 sausages. If there was 1 egg, you would get 2 eggs, and so on and so forth.
Oh, hello.
And it was not an unreasonable price, I'll say that. But yeah, that would be one go-to. If I was going home, when I started in secondary school, my brother was in his final year, so we would get lunch obviously at the same time, or he would generally be back in the house before me anyway. So my parents would be out working, and he would have like made soup or sandwiches or whatever. You know, he'd generally have something made for me, so I'd kind of come in, eat, and go. Yeah. But then as I got older and was in school on my own, I'd come home and just kind of make whatever suited while I watched Frasier or Cheers, which is generally on Channel 4 in the early afternoon slot.
Class. I unfortunately, as I said, being far away, unless it was the day where I did have my 220 or whatever, there was, towards the end of school, there was like these caterers that would come in and do like breakfast rolls. Well, not breakfast rolls, but like ham rolls, chicken rolls, ham and cheese, and like the only hot stuff they would do is wedges, and they would have a kettle there if you bought a pot noodle, but they were quite expensive for the time. So most days it was just a packed sandwich, depressing packed sandwich, and a bar of chocolate from home. And I would try to ration my pocket money so that I would have 80 cents a day to buy a can of like rock shandy or something. Coke was banned in our school. Until 6th year because of the caffeine.
You could get all varieties of Coke in my school.
Yeah, I'll imagine, yes. I know the approximate area you went to school, and that I have no trouble believing that. Whereas you know the approximate area of my school, and if I told you that I'm 5 minutes away from getting ketamine at any given moment, you will not be shocked.
The amount of people I say, you know, the joke you mentioned to me constantly about K-Town.
Yup, K-Town, yeah.
And people are like, really?
I could probably get you heroin or ketamine quicker than I could get you a rib steak. In my hometown. That has meandered quite a bit off snack talk, but the rib is good, is what I'm getting at. It's not as good as the rib steak, but it's back right now. The other thing, do not be fooled by current temporary menu item in Irish McDonald's. They have cheese bites, right? And I like sometimes some of the cheese bites they do at McDonald's. I think once I very controversially gave my ranking of cheese sides in McDonald's in the Discord, the Days of Thunder Discord channel. And I was met with some consternation from some of our friends in there. They are introducing these things called cheese bites, and you think they're just going to be a generic, lovely little cheese bite, akin to maybe their cheese melt dippers they always do at Christmas, which are delicious. Do not be fooled, because they are in fact the garlic cheese bites that are poisoned with garlic powder. I love garlic, but the artificial garlic seasoning that you can smell outside the bag is on these, and I got burned where I bought them, and as soon as I opened the bag I was like, fuck, that was a waste of money because I'm not going to eat them.
I will go to my grave saying it. The superior cheese bite is the chili cheese bite from Burger King. Nothing McDonald's does comes close.
That the one with the jalapenos in it?
Yes.
Yeah. Although, look, I do think the cheese melt dipper is class, and their mozzarella dippers are fine.
The mozzarella dippers are very replacement level.
Yeah, look, they're grand. Do you know what I mean? They do a job. It's not haute cuisine by any stretch.
No.
But anyway, let us move on. Unfortunately, we do have an episode of Thunder to talk about here. Fortunately, it is the last Thunder of the 20th century.
Well, I don't know if you saw this exchange in our Discord recently, but a lot of people are of the belief that our podcast is great and Thunder gets in the way of it, so...
Yeah, they're all bummed now that we have to get to this show. But we will go via Uncle Melty as he delivers his last Observer of the Millennium. And his lead story... So... We charted since Russo arrived about how, not that Dave was positive on Russo coming in, but it was like he could see the upside of why you would take a swing at Russo coming in.
Mm-hmm.
The temperature at the Observer offices has fucking changed since Starrcade. Because essentially he's saying meet the new boss, same as the old boss. His lead story, which I will not get into in huge detail, is how Vince Russo's big idea right now to turn around this company is the same idea Eric Bischoff had in 1996, which is, when in doubt, hit the NWO klaxon. So they've obviously, as we noted on our last program, reformed the NWO with the Outsiders, Bret and Jeff Jarrett. And they're attempting to do this, and it was successful 3.5 years ago, but absolutely outstayed its welcome. And as we pointed out, and will continue to point out, it was not gone for long enough for anybody to be nostalgic about it. And it also didn't have the thing that was so great about it at the time was, well, two things. That vibe, it was like the last thing where people weren't sure how much was a shoot and a work at the start when Hall and Nash showed up, right? That it did work some people. And then the other thing was the monumental, genuine shock of Hogan turning.
Yep.
There was no shock in Jeff joining, who was already a heel. There was no shock in Bret joining, not because he turned from face to heel, because one, we'd seen the Bret turn done much better 2 years ago, and two, the way this company has treated Bret since he got there, nobody had that investment in him anymore, that they felt betrayed.
Yeah, I don't want to say nobody cared, but I mean, nobody's watching the shows, so nobody cared.
Yeah.
It's so funny that already people that were open to giving Russo a chance have realised that this man has no idea what he's doing. He instantly goes with the idea of the NWO is what can save this company, which is the same idea that, like you said, Eric Bischoff has had since day one of the NWO being around, is that the NWO should always be on top. And it's only been when it was April, if not May, when we were getting Vincent, Stevie Ray and Bryan Adams fighting over the leadership of the NWO.
Yeah. Who could possibly miss it? Because not only was it recent, but look how, as you described, look how it petered out. It's not like it ended on some big satisfying payoff.
And they were vanquished.
Yeah. The most recent memories of the NWO are all bad. In fact, you could argue that the one faction of the NWO that they should have brought back for this 2000 incarnate was the Wolfpack.
Just call them the Wolfpack.
Yeah, Wolfpack 2000, I guess. Have them come out to the Wolfpack tune, which was super over still when they stopped doing it.
They wanted to garner boos. I don't know if you noticed, Dave, they're heels.
Yeah. Fucking tryhards is what they were. We'll talk about it. I want to fast forward a little bit into Dave's review of Starrcade. I won't read too much, but there was one note I thought was interesting. So, I don't think it's any mystery now, 25 years later, that Dave and Bret talked. A lot. I don't want to ever outright say Bret was a source, in as much as, do I think, with the exception of Montreal, Bret talked to Dave much about scoops? I don't think so. Or at least I don't know so. You know what I mean? Do I think that by this point, if Dave wanted to verify something about Bret, he could have made a call and verified it? Yes.
Absolutely.
So what I find interesting is that in Dave's review of the Bret match, nothing about Bret being injured by the kick is mentioned.
Okay.
Now, it just makes me think that, not to say he's not injured, I'm not going to tinfoil hat it and say he wasn't hurt by the kick, like he was hurt by the kick. But in our chat last time, we left on the point of you specifically saying, like, I think a lot of the problem came from the fact he had that initial injury, and then he wrestled, and then he wrestled, and then he wrestled.
Yep.
And now if you talk about Bret, he doesn't talk much about how he kept wrestling, and he puts a lot of weight on just the kick and about how unsafe Goldberg was and things like that. I would think if sincerely he always believed that from minute one, I believe I'd be reading that in the review.
Yeah. 100%.
And the other reason I think is because they do mention an injury to Bret in this match, but not his head, his back.
Okay.
So Hart used a figure four around the post, and in doing the move appeared to crack his head on the floor. So this is the other thing. We missed that in the match. The trick to the move is that the guy who is taking the move has to grab the guy giving the move and hold on to him from crashing on the floor. Goldberg didn't hold on to Hart, who injured his back when he hit the floor hard doing the move.
Okay.
So in the narrative around the head injury, I've never, until I read that, heard about anyone talking about how he reeled back, hit his head, and then landed on his back on the floor doing that figure four.
Now, if that was the move that initially concussed Bret,
because that was before the kick,
I was just going to say that would give a reason for Bret's reactions being a little bit slower. As we said, it was a split second of a split second that caused the kick.
It may not have been the injury, but yes, it might have knocked him loopy enough that he didn't throw up his hands with quite the force as we talked about that we would have necessarily expected. I just think it's interesting that clearly, like, it happened so quick that we missed it in watching the match, but it is clearly noted here. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's interesting. I'm not saying it's definitely anything or not, but I just think the fact that the kick isn't mentioned as injuring Bret, but this other spot is, where I guess what is being said here is it's still Goldberg's fault, this spot. Now, I don't know. I think with that figure four ring post spot, there's a lot more 50-50 on that, because I get that the guy is supposed to be holding your legs to hold you up, but also, should you be throwing your head back that
protect
hard?
yourself,
do you need to be doing that? Can you just ease down?
Also, do you think the narrative would be so Goldberg focused from Bret for 25 years if the person he went on to wrestle for the guts of a month in hardcore matches was somebody other than Terry Funk?
Yeah. It's very interesting getting to watch this play out in time, along with the show. Here's one for you as well from the same page in The Observer. Is Vince Russo I think he's feeling the heat. I think he's remarkably not self-aware in a lot of ways, but I think he knows the worm is starting to turn, and like the goodwill is starting to evaporate underneath him.
Okay.
Because as Dave notes here, he's essentially trying to play the blame game straight away after this show because he knows this show stinks. Vince Russo, sounding very desperate in the process, lashed out at criticism of his booking and blamed WCW standards and practices for the fact ratings haven't improved since his arrival this past week on the WCW live show. You should all see Lee's face is a study listening to this. Now, we all know it's been 25 years. Standards and practices is one of the absolute tropes of Vince Russo's blaming. Russo claimed the ratings haven't fallen, then in brackets, actually they've yet to bottom out to below the lowest rated Nitro in years, which is Kevin Nash's final week. But the 12-13 Nitro drew the second lowest rating in years, which certainly can't be construed as showing improvement. As we said, the very best thing you can say about Russo's tenure so far is that it's back to exactly where it was before he came in. It got an artificial boost for a couple of weeks, and then it slowly dropped back down to the same ballpark it always was in. I think it got a cumulative. I think the highest bump on any of the shows we've watched is like a 0.6 over what it had been doing during the Nash era, and that's ebbed and flowed. We're now, with variations of sometimes it's up a point, down 2 points, up 2 points, down 1 point. It's in that same ballpark as it was when Nash was in.
It's in its TNA existence of 1.1, 1.1, 1.1, 1.2, 1.1.
He's saying now that don't mind the ratings up until this point because everything was just in service of setting the table for an NWO reunion.
No, it wasn't.
Russo blamed standards and practices. Now, I'm sure all these things I'm about to list are definitely things that would have turned the ratings around. Russo blamed standards and practices for not allowing him to have Roddy Piper call Ronda Singh fat, for no longer allowing Ed Ferreira to mimic Jim Ross's Bell's palsy, and for not allowing Buzzkill to burn incense on the air. Russo said that WCW has to decide if it wants a squeaky clean show or ratings. They can't have both. One, yes, they can. And two, they clearly chose squeaky clean show and told you that already.
I think they can have ratings and a squeaky clean show. Yeah. I mean, in spite of the fact that it's the 90s, Friends is the biggest show on TV.
Yeah. But also, there are degrees where you can have a gritty show that isn't
calling women a bitch and fat.
Yeah. Like there are, it doesn't have to be like
extremes on either end.
Yeah, there are degrees of separation. But it's just convenient.
Well, no, it's either you are the Brady Bunch, Dave, or you are. Do you ever see Happy Tree Friends? Do you remember that show from MTV?
Yeah.
There's no in between. It's just you're one or the other.
He said he was promised certain leeway when he came in for the first 6 weeks. Everything was fine, but once the heat came from sponsors, the rules changed. He also said people in WCW have been trying to stab him in the back. And then Dave basically wrote, for what it's worth, there is far less feeling of Russo as a creative genius within the organisation, and those who were 100% with him as recently as 4 weeks ago now privately believe he has no new ideas and just spun a good line. He's been here for 2 months and he's already been seen completely through.
Yeah, I question the intelligence of the people that are there that have not seen through him at this point.
Yeah. He claimed... I think, to be fair to most of the people in WCW, I think there are two types of people for the most part. People who see through him and people who probably do see through him if they're being honest, but he's pushing them, so they're going to stick by him.
Do you mean Jeff?
I mean, yeah... I don't not mean Jeff.
Yeah.
He claimed people in the company saying the problem isn't standards and practices, and and that the show's writing hasn't been good, and claimed that people who he never mentioned but are believed to be Kevin Sullivan, JJ Dillon, were doing the same thing Jim Ross, Jim Cornette, and Bruce Pitcher did to him in the WWF. He also lashed out at critics, myself in particular, says Dave, with name calling that made some in the organization think he was working an angle. This will make your head spin, even though you already know it for a fact. Russo says he gauges his success by internet feedback and crowd response. You think he'd gauge success by quarter-hour ratings and, most importantly, tickets being sold and pay-per-view buy rates, but that would mean he'd have to write shows for the general public and not the internet. He's apparently trying to build for a big angle on 2/14, since Nitro will be unopposed with Raw airing in the 11 p.m. slot due to the Westminster Dog Show. Would you like to hear some of the ideas? I
was just going to say, is that Dave Meltzer talking about Vince Russo's WCW, or is that Brian Alvarez talking about AEW? It's hard to tell.
Among the ideas he talked about on this WCW live show were bringing back Lenny and Lodi under the name Standards and Practices, with crew cuts and glasses playing nerdy characters. They've just done the creative control thing. On this show we're about to talk about, those same creative control people just cut a promo saying how much the creative control thing sucks.
Yeah, but it's different this time.
Yeah. He also wait till you hear this. This'll you mightn't have heard this one. He also talked about bringing back Jim Hellwig as a full-timer. And also, there was talk about WCW speaking with Bruno Sammartino.
Why?
Nobody from WCW at this point has contacted. This is a good thing about Dave. We all now know that Sammartino was a Dave source. He spoke to Dave all the time about how much he hated Vince mainly. Yeah, so WCW hadn't formally contacted him at this point. The idea being that they would join Zbyszko, Orndorff, Anderson, and Piper to feud with Russo as the traditionalist who hate what Russo has done to wrestling.
Hang on. Jim Hellwig, the warrior, the traditionalist.
Yeah. So, here's the thing, right? We need to remember. Later on, a few months from now, when they do Millionaires Club and New Blood, and we remember people complaining about the old-timers being pushed as the stars and the baby faces in this feud, I guess one thing we should remember is it could have been worse. It could have been this group of even older, shitter people. Like, God bless, I love Arn. I've loved Larry sometimes. But in terms of what they can offer in the ring in 2000, it would have been way worse. And that's before you even add Jim Hellwig and Bruno Sammartino. What was Bruno going to do?
I mean, I can only imagine.
Was he going to be their manager?
Bruno was being contacted so he could just bury Vince McMahon on air.
Yeah. He talked about wanting to bring back Randy Savage, but said the contract situation is out of his hands, and talked about Jeff Jarrett as a main eventer starting early in the year, which is the one thing that does happen. He also claimed if he left or was let go by WCW, he would never go back to the WWF because he could never work with Vince McMahon for another day, even though he tried multiple times to go back there.
I was just going to say, every time he did go back, it was just for a day.
Yes. Just visiting. One thing that I thought, I really want to get my hands on this. Dave very sarcastically talks about how there's an True Hollywood Story episode that is Hulk Hogan, and is very, very clearly they just believed everything Hogan told them, and that's how they made the documentary. I really want to watch Hogan's version of Hogan's life on True Hollywood Story. It sounds really funny.
I mean, you've read Hogan's book, haven't you?
No, God, no.
Have you not read his first autobiography?
No, I've heard excerpts, people burying it on podcasts and stuff.
It's great. I mean, what a life that man has lived.
Here's an interesting thing. Monday evening, Nitro 1220 was more noticeable for the word shit being used in various forms and not bleeped out. I am of the opinion now that Russo is trying to create a boogeyman to blame for getting fired. I think he knows the day is coming, And I think he's trying to drum up someone firing him and something that will make him like, do you know, the equivalent of now a guy who's saying, "Oh, I was cancelled."
Yeah.
Do you know?
He's trying to get ahead. He's trying to get ahead of his own firing by saying, "Oh, they won't let me say shit on TV."
Yeah. So he knows that standards and practices won't, and he's still doing it. I think to try and force their hand. Say, "Oh, look, they're afraid of a word," rather than them firing him for gross incompetence.
Like, are you aware of the story of how Dusty got fired from Jim Crockett Promotions?
I am, but please regale the audience. Should they not?
So Dusty had been doing a lot of like heat-heavy angles with like beatdowns and a lot of blood on TBS. And as should be made aware, is Saturday night, NWA JCP Saturday night was obviously 6:05, so it wasn't, you know, a post-Watershed production. So, you know, a lot of blood on there was probably not ideal for the time slot. And Dusty was warned not to do any kind of heavy angles. And what he did was he turned around that same week and booked the Road Warriors to attack him with their spikes in a nonsensical heel turn. And he was fired that weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
That's Russo. Russo is now, as you say, looking for his way to get fired and get out ahead of it. And say, I'm a genius, they just couldn't see it.
Yeah, crucially looking for a way to get fired that isn't the booking.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they said either 3 or 4 times on one show the word shit was used. So that's an interesting one. Nicole Bass's sexual harassment lawsuit against the WWF goes for its first court date on 1/7. She's also releasing a series of sexual dominating videos on that same day.
Cool.
I wonder, is that Dave laying the groundwork for some reviews in the future? Because it's weird to mention those two things together, Dave. A little bit of MMA news this week.
Okay.
Just interesting, because I was listening to, shout out to a recent episode of Chapo Trap House, where they were talking basically about the history of UFC and Trump being inextricably linked with one another.
Mm-hmm.
So, like the first UFC of the Zuffa era was at
Trump Plaza.
Trump Plaza.
Mm-hmm.
He has been a big public supporter of theirs for a long, long time. Obviously, we don't have to talk about how fucking right wing a lot of fighters have gotten publicly over the years, and how fucking Dana has spoken at the RNC and things like that. But Kareem Zidane was talking about all this on an episode of Chapo recently, and it got it in my head, and I just saw this because at this time, this is when MMA nearly goes away. Mm-hmm. Because the start of MMA in the 90s has a lot of the freak show styles clashing appeal, which is part of what interested me in it in the first place, is that up until like into the 2010s, you would have guys who were really good at one style of fighting. You wouldn't have, I think, like the first true kind of hybrid fighter I remember was George St. Pierre, but he was like an exception rather than the rule for many years. But because of this freak show fight and like mismatches and it just being viewed as what John McCain, former presidential candidate, called human cockfighting, and was actively part of trying to get it banned. It was banned in something like 36 states at one point. But one of the states that was friendly to it over the years has been California. And this week in real time in 1999, the California State Athletic Commission's approval of MMA, the major compromise given is that matches in California will not allow closed fist striking on the ground.
Okay.
There should be quite a few promoters running shows with the new regulations, basically legalizing MMA in the state, which is a pretty huge positive movement. So it's interesting that like there are so many occasions on which it's kind of surprising MMA didn't die as a thing. And the other thing I was going to point out this week, it's interesting, there's some ideas for a thing that would eventually get them popular. They were going to start a full contact fighter television show, at one point. Big proposes a regular series on TSN, which is now on hold due to the political climate, the unpopularity of MMA in political discourse. So I just thought that was interesting, that clearly the idea for the Ultimate Fighter, was
there all the way back in 99, basically.
Yeah. Quite interesting there. We have some news briefs before we move in. A consequential thing from ECW. We haven't talked about ECW in a while. Chris Candido, Tammy Sitch, and Axel Rotten were all fired this week. So, watchers of 2000 WCW will know that Chris Candido and Tammy will be coming in imminently.
They come in at the reboot, don't they? They don't come in pre-reboot.
Yeah. I don't think... Well, look, again, memory of the next few months is quite... I remember things happening, but not necessarily what order. The dressing room last week in Dover was said to be totally unprofessional to the point of embarrassment, and this is for ECW. Heyman wasn't at the show, but it was clear that some examples were going to have to be made, and since Candido, Sitch, and Rotten were all on the bubble anyway, there was little choice. Heyman had privately said when Sitch came back that he expected it would be a short-term thing, and from the booking you can see her that after her second week back, he just used her to jumpstart TV ratings and then tried to transfer her star power to the other women rather than focusing it on her. Others say that while Heyman needed to get rid of them, there were wrestlers in even worse shape higher on the card that he's keeping. It was even clear to a TV viewer that Sitch and Rotten, although it was not noticeable watching regarding Candido, had become shells of what they once were. For better or for worse, Heyman right now is the only owner in the company who is seemingly addressing these issues at all and has gotten rid of and suspended people. That's really weird. Like, when you, like... Not that he was doing, again, because there is that contradiction of, like, he's keeping certain people that where it's more convenient. But all the stories of ECW is this stuff was rampant and no one ever did anything about it. But it is interesting to see, at least, maybe it's just for public face saving, that Paul is suspending and firing some people.
I think Tammy would have been a very easy target in that sense because,
well, like I said, the three of them were already on the bubble for previous infractions.
And obviously Tammy had her problems with WWF. So again, I think it's easy to use Tammy and Chris as scapegoats, but I absolutely believe Dave's report that there was people higher up the card than those two and Axel that were probably in, if not a similar, if not worse condition than those three. Because, I mean, look, it's 1999 ECW.
Yeah. Like, well, they talk a lot about, like, do you remember the Dark Side of the Ring with New Jack? And New Jack is basically going, yeah, like, he'd come to the ring up to the fucking tits on crack. Like, and there's way more cases than that. Way more cases. Like, it's basically everybody in the company who wasn't Lance Storm, there's a good chance that they were on something on TV at some stage. Anyway, we move then from ECW just into a couple of brief WCW and WWF notes, if there are any. I think there are a couple of good ones from WWF, but I did notice some from... So Shivani, Hudson, and Tenay are going to become the regular announcing team for Thunder starting this week. Don't get used to that, by the way. On 12/29, TNT will be airing the 3-hour Best of Nitro to round out the year. We will not be watching that. Although they will be showing the Liger-Brian Pillman first Nitro match on it, which is nice. I think they basically re-show a lot of the key Nitro moments a couple of months later when they do the down week before the reboot.
The week before the reboot, they do like a best of. They do the
studio show.
Yeah.
Fans at house shows generally laugh at David Flair when he is shown on the screen and when he comes down the aisle. I feel vindicated by 1999.
It's funny. His father would laugh at him as well.
Do you want this? This is from Dave. I don't know why it's thrown in here right now, but absolutely useless bit of wrestling trivia. When Ric Flair was growing up in Edina, Minnesota, he used to work as a paperboy. One of the people he delivered papers to was Mad Dog Vachon.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay. He was clearly talking to Rick this week.
I was just going to say, obviously Rick and Meltzer went for a drink that week.
Yeah. At this point, it appears better than 50-50 that Randy Savage will work out all his money problems and stay. Hart was originally asked to do on Nitro the same interview that Shawn Michaels did in Ottawa the day after Survivor Series. He didn't want to play the angle up, so they tweaked it a little. The general speculation is that Russo wanted this angle to portray that he should get credit with the general public for Montreal as being an angle he created, with the idea that that's what turned around the WWF. So he wants to trick, Russo wants to trick people into thinking that he scripted Montreal.
Oh God, what the...
Hoovy just had surgery on his elbow, expected back wrestling early February. Eric Bischoff is still interested in returning as the manager of Hulk Hogan.
I was just going to say Hoovy will be back commentating long before then.
Yes, sadly. Dave has basically confirmed that Cactus Jack will be returning.
Look at Dave throwing out spoilers.
Yeah, that they're building to Foley versus Triple H in Madison Square Garden. That he reckons it will be Cactus Jack. Austin's surgery has been bumped up to January. There was a cancellation giving an earlier date. It's mad that like he left in November to get the surgery and it's still over 2 months waiting.
Mm-hmm.
My name is Cameron Jones. I'm a martial artist. My dream is to compete in the Olympics. My uncle needed a kidney transplant. So for him to have that second chance at life, it means a lot. I hope my organs will achieve greatness. I want them to have such an optimistic and positive outlook on life. That's just something that I want my organs to be able to do.
When you become an organ and tissue donor, your story continues. Lifelink. Register today at mystorycontinues.com.
There's not much else from WWF at this stage. There was an interesting, there was a poll in the Observer this week about how, what do you think the mixed kitty thing, work or shoot? Because WWF were claiming, we read it last week that they didn't know that she was going to do it. And I think it was 93% of Dave's readers were like, of course they knew she was going to do it. And then
hang on, the WWF lied about something involving women?
I know, right? Phil Mushnick in his 12/19 column in the New York Post basically said, he basically laughing about how the claim that it was an accident. Both Kitty and Jerry Lawler missed TV in Houston because it coincided with the Hollywood premiere of Man on the Moon. Yeah, pretty much. Oh, considering where they end up in a couple of months, it's interesting. Regarding rumors of Brian Adams and Brian Clark coming into WWF as the new Demolition, we're told there is nothing to it. And when their names came up, since Adams was in Tampa at Raw looking for work, the Vince McMahon reaction was that he wasn't interested. There'd be no conversations with Clark, and Jim Ross has confirmed as much through the WWF website. Ken Shamrock is still there, still interested in fighting in 2000 as well. D'Lo Brown intends to re-sign next year. Yeah. Oh, and something that I'm sure you're delighted by, Dave confirming that Taz will be spelled with 2 Z's in WWF because Time Warner owns single Z Taz.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was Time Warner.
Yeah, well, because Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
So there you are. That's unfortunately now I have stalled long enough, and we must talk about Thunder episode 93.
Mm-hmm.
This is Thunder episode 93 from Salisbury, Maryland. 23rd of December 1999. A 2.2 rating, down by 0.1. A rare recap video to open the show. Weird. Although I think some of these recaps, Lee, are being necessitated by so much the fuck happens on every show you miss that it would be utterly bewildering from minute one if they didn't do it.
I know there's the whole idea of using your time wisely and getting as much as you can in, but they do so much stuff on these shows.
Yeah.
It's utterly mind-boggling how much they squeeze in.
Yeah. Dr. Claw points the finger at Piper, saying that he sold out and he had nothing to do with what happened at the pay-per-view. Nash says there's a code. The boys never screw with one of the boys, which I thought was very funny. calls Bret a piece of shit. Piper quits. Calls Piper a piece of shit. Goldberg dresses him down. Bret blames the office. Russo says, I know you thought I had something to do with Montreal. So remember what I just said?
Yep.
I know you thought I had something to do with Montreal. Bret throws the belt at him. Bret Goldberg rematch. Scott Hall returns. They all screw Goldberg. Jarrett joins them. The band is back together, even though they weren't together before. Now, it has been said to us that we should have covered this Nitro.
No.
This is like it was a popular thing, and it wasn't just. I know Webcon was the friend of the show, Thunder Buddy, most vocal about it in the Discord, but he's not the only one, and people have like DM'd us and chatted to you and me about would we do that Nitro, and we maintained no for two reasons. One, we do a lot of these nights of Nitro, and we want it to be an occasional treat, and for something exceptionally WCW to happen. Mm-hmm. And we've just come off a string of doing several in the last couple of months.
Yes.
In real time, not in podcast time. And the other reason is we were pretty sure they were going to recap what was like a 5-minute angle on the Thunder, which they immediately did. And I watched this and I was like, thank God, right, I feel relieved now, because I would have had to throw my hands up if they didn't show and you had to piece it together that the NWO thing happened on Monday. I would have gone, right, fair enough, maybe we should have covered it.
But also, as you said, it was a couple of minute long angle at the end of a 3-hour show, and ultimately it does nothing except establish that they are a thing. I think the more fascinating thing with NWO 2000 is to actually see their existence, not their formation.
Yes. I completely agree. Anyway, they come out straight away. The music is back. And this, again, I kind of mentioned it a few minutes ago, Lee. This was the most fucking try-hard, please boo me promo. None of these men, with the exception of maybe Jeff, who, like, this ultimately becomes a vehicle for Jeff to be propelled to the main event, none of the other three are into this at all.
That you took the words out of my mouth. The level of investment from Hart, Hall, and Nash in this is fucking laughable. They do not want to do this. Like, you can tell, like, look, we all know Nash and Hall in particular, you can tell when they're into something. And they are out here laughing and joking and saying, oh, you know, you guys like to cheer us when we were bad guys, but we're bad guys now and yous are all idiots.
Yeah, and Bret calls them stupid idiots, and it's not in like a... Again, you look at Bret 97 heel versus this, and tell me with a straight face this guy's into this for a second.
Yeah.
Do we even need to really...
I mean, there's something to recap, because
fucking Bret, or was it Bret?
Bret narrates a video.
Sean gets name dropped.
Oh god,
Sean gets name dropped twice. Mm-hmm. Says he's an even better actor than Sean. Like, it's just sad.
Well, Sean's friends go, ooh, okay.
Yeah. There's a bit about we've got your money now. Like, I know you're trying to get them to boo you guys, but you shouldn't make the fans feel uncool for giving your company money. Mm-hmm. That seems to be that would be a bit verboten to me. Make fun of the baby faces.
The funniest part of the promo is when, so they all get their bit. Hall opens, throws the Hart. Nash then does his bit, and then to close it, it's Jarrett, and Jarrett says there'll be no watering down, no bastardization, and no ham and eggers in this version of the NWO.
Yeah.
The Harris brothers joined this version of the NWO pretty soon.
Not only that, but it's just like, hey, they're basically going, and look, it's true, but they shouldn't say it and point it out. It's like, do you remember that version of the thing you thought was really cool? That was actually shit.
Yep.
And I know it was, and they ultimately did put too many of those ham and eggers in there, and it was awful. But they shouldn't say that the thing everybody loved sucked.
Yeah, they're basically telling you, you know the way you were invested in this company for 2 years? Well, you're stupid.
Yeah, because they're not doing it in a way to go, oh, the baby faces are shit, you know, boo us, we're the heels, and get great heat. It's them going, the only thing they have is the name NWO. Mm-hmm. And they're burying how shit the version everybody liked was.
Like, does this group suffer if you call them something other than NWO?
Yeah. There was, towards the end of this, there was also a couple of sloppy jump cuts. I think some lines were cut out. Jeff, in I think maybe the first time I've noticed him use the word on television, says, looking at this crowd, it's the first annual Slapnuts convention, which I think is really funny because if it is the first annual Slapnuts convention, him and his friends are on stage at it.
Yep.
Seems like a bit of a misfire. So Goldberg comes out and stares them down. Maybe the only good part of this, where he said he's going to rip their hearts out and shove them down their throats. It's not who's next, it's going to be who's left. And the fact that Goldberg, who is not great at promos, cuts a promo that's 20 times as good as anything they said and actually gets a crowd reaction is really damning.
20 times as good and 100 times as fucking short. It was great.
Yes. Tony is in for Hoovy this week, thank God. Tony says Benoit earned his title shot tonight because he's getting a shot at the world title. And I was like, it's mad. He somehow earned his shot and also lost his belt on the same Nitro we didn't watch.
He earned a shot weeks ago by winning something.
Cool.
Yep.
But he also, like, you couldn't just have him hold the US title for one more week.
No, because Jarrett had to come out with the title.
Yes. Yeah. Anyway, we then get like a music video to Loose by Primer 55 from the new WCW Mayhem soundtrack. Basically angry white boy new metal.
You missed what they went to before they threw to a break.
Oh, sorry.
Very important, Dave. Because, you know, it's Vince Russo.
Yes.
You have to have extremely attractive women do things backstage. So
yes.
Leah Meow was backstage preparing for the varsity clubs match tonight by stretching.
Yes, doing a split stretch.
Yep.
And guess what the camera was pointed at? If you wrote down her crotch, you get the points.
Family-friendly show.
I thought you were going to say because this is Vince Russo, we have to have two large mystery men appear on bikes. I wonder who they could possibly be. More on that later. We then get Gene, who is standing weirdly close to Chris Benoit for this interview.
Yeah, he was. This interview was very odd.
Yeah.
Like, Benoit is, you know, he's never been the most charismatic wrestler in the world.
Nope.
But he's really fucking, like,
just rambling.
Yeah, he's like, Bret Hart was a hero. I grew up with the Hart family. I'm so disappointed in Bret Hart.
Some bullshit about how I prefer to make the hard decisions in life.
And it's like, you know, you could just say, I have a world title match tonight. I'm going to go out there and beat the NWO's ass.
He betrayed the fans. I'm mad at him. And I'm the number one contender. I'm going to embarrass him.
But I'm also no longer the US
10
champion.
Yeah, we're not going to talk about that. Anyway, we get our first... Oh, now, I'm handing off to you for this because you text me apoplectic that this was the opening. You hated this show so much.
Oh, God, I wasn't very in the lead on this one, but yeah, this show was fucking horrendous.
Tell people what the opening match on this show was.
Dave, the opening match on this show was PG-13 debuting to take on the Varsity Club, who are making their Thunder debut.
The only thing worth note in this match is the fact that since Sunday, Rick Steiner went, fine, I'll wear the Varsity Club gear.
Yeah. Couple of things to note. The gimmick with the Varsity Club seems to be that they will make Liam Meow work out before the matches.
Yes. And during.
Kevin Sullivan is on commentary.
Yes. Awful.
And
one match in and we have to have a 4-man boot.
Rick Steiner is still a fucking absolute cunt who takes liberties with his opponents in the ring.
Yes.
So,
I will say, PG-13 are awful.
Yes.
But you can rest assured, they only ever make 2 Nitro and 2 Thunder appearances, and I think they've already made both their Nitro appearances.
Great.
They do some Saturday night spots, but we will not be watching those.
This was just a glorified beatdown.
Yeah.
And I think using the term glorified
there wasn't much glory in
is
it.
like really generous.
Yeah. It's just a squash, but then it's really funny because they get DQ'd for kicking too much ass.
Yeah.
And I actually don't know, so they did the bit where they hard Irish whipped Kevin Sullivan and then Liam Meow at one of the PG-13 guys in the corner, and I genuinely don't know which one of them did the worst running charge into the corner. Like, hers was slower,
but she also stopped short and then just punched whichever PG-13 in the dick.
Yeah. Whereas he went full speed and is a wrestler, or was a wrestler, and it was still dog shit.
Yeah.
The bikers are walking around backstage. They obviously still haven't taken their helmets off, and I'm like, how can they see in the dark backstage through massive, thick, black helmets? How are they not just... Now, I would like a segment of the two of them like just bumping into walls and shit and catering. That'd be good.
Well, as you are aware, Dave, the big reveal is that it is in fact the the Harris brothers on the motorbikes and in the helmets. Mm-hmm. I would have no doubt that those two guys, without the helmets on, would just walk into walls because
idiots.
They're morons.
Yeah. Allegedly.
The next segment is David Flair at the Dairy Queen.
Sorry, who?
Sorry, Gormless Idiots, David Flair.
Hey, he said the thing!
Going full Jim Cornette at the Dairy Queen.
That's what I wrote!
While Daphne plays the role of Chris Jericho going, he's disrespecting you, man.
If you are too young, there is a famous clip recorded by, I believe, Lance Storm and Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
In the back of Cornette's car of him absolutely fucking losing it at some poor woman working in a Dairy Queen drive-thru for getting his order wrong.
No,
it became the stuff of legend.
The gimmick is that Cornette ordered like 30 burgers and fries or something for like this car full of wrestlers, and the poor woman thought it was a joke order.
Oh, prank order, yes.
And left them waiting for like 45 minutes.
Yeah. Oh boy.
Yeah. So Gormless Idiot David Flair goes full Cornette, and that's the bit.
Yeah. We cut back to Dr. Claw's office, which looks like fucking shit. He's claiming that he is the one. So he's trying to claim credit for Montreal, but he's also trying to claim credit for the NWO, saying he moved the pieces together to get the NWO back. Him and Kurt Hennig slag off La Parka, Shane, and the Doofuses. The two large bikers jump him, and yes, shock horror, it is the Harris brothers, and they cut a horrendous promo threatening Vince Russo. The Animals are back, and with Eddie Guerrero. Again, every time that he shows up, I'm just like, oh, I just assumed he never comes back on TV until he's gone. But here he is. But clearly, mentally, he's not back in WCW, because this man did not give a fuck.
I thought you were having a stroke there. I was like, Eddie Guerrero was always in the Filthy Animals.
No. That's what I mean. No, he was because he'd been off TV. He wasn't with them. So they are Americans, he said. The revolution failed to kill them off. Kidman says they're going to beat them like a couple of bitches. Real cool there, Kidman. A fucking horrendous Rey Mysterio promo that I just didn't write down anything he said because it's just get the mic out of Rey's hands, just have him do flips, lads. Jim Duggan is with them, by the way, and he hits a ho and a USA chant because of course he does. The revolution come out. I believe Malenko accidentally calls them the Revelation.
Yes.
The group he's in. Saturn does one of his dumb things about Fred Flintstone. While I'm out here, how does Fred Flintstone's car not tip over with the weight of the ribs? Do you get it? Shane rambles for a bit. Fucking bollocks. Terrible segment.
That's every Revolution segment, to be fair.
Dr. Claw says he's going to flee to his white limo while Kurt takes on the former creative control by himself. Next up, it's the Days of Thunder wrestling debut of Tank Abbott.
Yeah, it's our first tank match.
Can I shock you?
What?
I think this might be my favourite match of the show.
Oh, that doesn't shock me because it was probably mine as well.
He just comes in, beats the dog fuck out of La Parka, and they ring the bell. It's fucking brilliant.
Tank Abbott works like you would expect a MMA fighter to work in wrestling. He is just a manic fucking just throwing fists and knees.
He works like no one smartened him up. Like he had to beat this skeleton in a fight. Like he was avenging Lex Luger.
I want that to be true, where somebody backstage just went, Tank, this is a shoot.
Yeah. Within, no joke, about 50 seconds, La Parka is unconscious under a fence, and it's over. And somehow in that 50 seconds, they also managed to fit in Tank Abbott completely no-selling a direct chair shot to the forehead.
Well, see, that was the finish, because he no-sells the chair shot and then lands a right fucking hook on the button.
Knocks. Yeah. And then he turns around and kills Doug Dillinger stone dead.
If only.
What
a baby face.
Honestly, if they just had him do this for a year, or every week it was either him killing La Parka or him beating the dog fuck out of Mark Madden, I can't wait. We're doing that Nitro. I'm not missing that.
Mark Madden and Doug Dillinger on a rotation would be fine by me.
So we have Norman Smiley praying and hiding under the stairs as Goldberg rambles around backstage looking for the NWO. They do another ad for the Nitro Girls calendar, which I thought was very funny. Let's advertise and make money off the Nitro Girls after completely canning the concept of the Nitro Girls. We don't want to book them, but we will make you pay for their cleavage.
Yeah.
Next up we have... Look, I kind of enjoyed this. But, not in a good way. I did enjoy it. The artist recording session.
Oh, where Paisley cuts a fucking promo on somebody?
Yeah. I mean, she's kind of she's got confidence.
She's good,
got,
yeah.
She's charismatic. Mm-hmm. Again, I say, if you had put this gimmick on anyone with an ounce of personality, it probably could have been something. But it's just it's so funny to have all this mystique and all this glam around somebody so fucking boring.
I mean, look, Hoovy nailed it. You're giving that to this guy?
Yeah. Canal. We then get a WCW hardcore title match that pits Norman Smiley versus Fit Finlay. This match is what I would like to officially dub the Normula, which is the formulaic Norman Smiley match. Mm-hmm. He gets beaten up for 98% of the match, runs away, screams, someone slips on a banana peel or gets attacked by an interfering wrestler, and Norman wins.
I mean, it could quite literally have been a banana peel because they wrestled in the kitchen here.
Yes.
What did you think of Brian Knobbs hiding in a closet in a kitchen that they randomly walked into?
in the walk-in freezer. He managed to hide behind, conveniently, the only door in the building that they open.
Yes.
The idea that Brian Knobbs is in any way intelligent enough to figure this out and spring a trap. No. They try to behead Norman with a shutter when Meng comes out of absolutely nowhere and kills the two of them. No sells a trash can, ducks a baking sheet, hits Knobbs, drags Norman's leg over Finlay, which is not a proper cover, and the ref counts the pin. And then...
Who'd have thought that somebody being decapitated by a roller door would be the crossover between both this episode and our latest episode on the Patreon?
LargeManAppears.com.
Yes.
You can find out what that link is. Yeah, the one bit I did laugh at is that he's so happy he won that he goes to hug Meng, forgetting where he was for a moment, and gets choked out. There's a letter in Jeff's bag to come to Dr. Claw's office. Jeff Jarrett gets jumped by Goldberg immediately. Gets its throat, goozles him against the wall, threatens him, says he's going to take them all out in order tonight. We then get Kurt Hennig versus the renamed Harris Brothers.
Harris Boys,
yes. They tell Dr. Claw he can shove those monkey suits up his ass. They kill Hennig, pin him, hoof him out of the ring. Then the NWO, who, as you point out, they would soon join, come out, take the two of them out. They attack them and spray paint the Harris Brothers, particularly on the backs of their bald heads. Then we have two men I completely forgot were employed in the company right now. Bam Bam Bigelow versus the Maestro with Symphony. The only saving grace is that we get to see a bit of Champagne Chris Kanyon, who comes out on commentary, absolutely slagging off all the commentators.
Yeah, I mean, deservedly so.
Bam Bam beating Maestro all over the place. Symphony comes in to try and prevent the top rope headbutt, but he still does it anyway. Jay Biggs comes in, tries to hit him with the bottle, gets blocked. Kanyon hits him with a fake WCW title from the movie set, because this whole Champagne Chris Kanyon is that he went away, he's in Ready to Rumble, and he's going to be a big star. Maestro wins, and that's that. I love that what is supposed to be the richest prize in our sport, he takes what is clearly the WCW title out, beans a man in the head with it, and Tony Schiavone is like, what's that he's using?
Yeah,
it's some sort of belt.
Never identifies that it looks like a copy of the WCW World Title. Just, oh my God, what's this object he's using?
Mm-hmm. Gene is with DDP. He said he had a great 1999.
No, he didn't.
That is a lie.
Yeah, no, he did not.
He wants to clarify one thing, is that his wife is not banging Buff Bagwell. He said Buff was flirting with her, DDP overreacted, and now they want to make an angle out of it. So take
great.
a sip, insider reference.
Great.
Gene says, tonight you're booked against the wall. DDP, God bless him, just goes, my ass I am, and leaves.
That's a star.
Yeah. No, the fuck I'm not. Evan and Medusa recap. And then we get, I think, the other highlight of the show, but it's not a match. This would be my match of the show if it was a match. The degree to which I popped for the debut of 3 Count.
The whiplash of this character.
Yeah. He
goes from MILF Hunter.
He goes from Cook to Justin Timberlake in a week.
He went MILF Hunter to I'm into this person that just appeared on the show to now I'm in a boy band because all bitches be crazy.
Yeah. But he tries to make it sound mean with his promo, and he's like, I'm going to show them by being bad boys. And they got their little NSYNC microphones. Like, I don't think that we give enough credit to what a perfect
Oh, it was great.
heel gimmick 3 count is for 1999 wrestling crowds, because it's all teenage and young adult men, and what do they hate more than anything? Fucking boy bands. Shirtless, pristine, chiseled young men singing pop songs scare the shit out of these motherfuckers.
I know it was a thing earlier this year to do the no 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 dance because of Deadpool.
Yeah.
If
Do you mean the bye 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 dance?
Yeah, sorry. What was I saying? No, no, no. Yeah, bye, bye,
No,
bye.
no, no.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, man, it's fucking 1 o'clock in the morning. Give me a fucking break.
Grandad's off his meds.
Just be happy I'm not singing fucking Coco Melon songs, because trust me, it'll happen to you too.
Yeah.
That
boy zone with the no, no, no. Boys won, is it?
Yeah, I know it's a thing to do the bye 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 dance earlier this year.
Yeah.
If you weren't around, any male that even admitted to knowing the song Bye 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 when it came out.
It's not like now.
Oh
where
no.
You can be a manly man and admit you enjoy a pop banger. It was beaten into you that you had to not just not listen to.
You had to hate.
Actively hate pop music.
You had to hate pop music. It's
and
insane.
you could only enjoy pop singers if they were female and attractive. And you couldn't like the songs. You just had to be like,
I mean, that's what it was.
That was the credo. That was the time. So it is, without doubt, one of the better ideas for a heel stable of young guys, like, of this era.
And I have to say,
it genuinely generates quite a lot of heat.
They nailed the casting.
Shannon Moore, Sugar Shane Helms, and Evan Courageous. Tremendous. Like, and here's the one thing, like, the one thing you're lacking in Evan Courageous is somebody who is like he's green as hell, and his wrestling is not that interesting. So you took in 2 fucking backyarders who are like, if nothing else, they do really interesting shit.
Well, we should say the 2 backyarders had gotten over in the WWF at this point as a tag team.
Yes.
So this is very much Russo just going, well, those 2 guys wrestled with those guys, so let's just put them on TV.
They basically said, like, we're going to bang all your women, and then proceeded to do the 3 count song, complete with, like we said, the head mics and the dodgy green screen music video. It's fucking perfect from minute 1. And, like, the great thing is they get nicer gear. They do, like, slightly different promos, but the fact that they keep doing the same fucking song every time. I used to think, God, it's so not creative. Like, they should have had, like, a litany of pop bangers. But the older I get, the more I think about it, it's like, no, it's perfect. It was always the same fucking song.
I think they do a second song, but it's
do.
like right by the end of the act.
Yeah.
It's perfect.
And then it's perfect, and they would ultimately, they go through, look, at the time, I'm excited and fearful a little bit to go through the period where Tank Abbott becomes 3 counts #1 fan. Because I thought it was fucking hilarious at the time. And I wonder, will I just be super mad about it? Because now, like, we saw Tank Abbott come in like a badass and kill people. And will I just be mad that this is another guy who was getting, like, they were putting him in a certain way and just went, fuck it. And just lost interest. But also, I'm like, I can't imagine getting too mad at, like, Tank Abbott who can't wrestle.
Yeah,
not getting pushed the same way.
I think that's something you always have to consider when it comes to Tank Abbott is, yeah, they probably did a lot of bad things with him, but it's Tank Abbott. You know, there's a fucking ceiling on what you can do with him.
Also, it's easy babyface pop to attack these guys when they're doing their shitty song. As evidenced by the fact one of the biggest pops of Chavo Guerrero Jr.'s career happens here because he jumps them.
I mean, sweet dropkick.
Yeah. I've never hated him more, though. And we had to go through 6 months of Pepe.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I was just going to say, remember when Pepe was like the worst thing on one of these shows?
Yeah. Those were the days, huh? We get another debut in the next segment. As gormless idiot David Flair meets gas attendant Crowbar.
I forgot he came in as a gas attendant. Well, that was the debut,
Yeah.
was the gas attendant bit.
Yeah. Vamp and the Misfits try to jump him at the petrol station, and Crowbar fights him off. So now, gormless idiot David Flair has the charisma of the act in Daphne, and has the heater in Crowbar. So this act is about to become much more palatable.
I have a question.
Yes.
So, the Misfits and Vampiro jumped David Flair at a gas station.
Yeah.
Crowbar makes the save. Daphne is also there.
Yes.
Why did nobody just pick up a fucking gas pump and like cover their opponent in fucking diesel or petrol?
That's a very good question.
Would have broke up the fight very quickly.
Yeah. See, we were still 2 years away from learning our lesson about petrol pumps in Zoolander.
I thought you were going to say we're still a couple of months away from the Human Torch match.
Oh, God. Yeah. But delighted that the act is together at least. And like David Flair, who again is getting ridicule on the house shows, will at least have a competent wrestler and Daphne with him. Next up, 6-man tag team match. It's Jim Duggan and the Filthy Animals versus the Revolution. God bless, it is weird to see people try to actually wrestle on this episode, but unfortunately Kidman is joined by 2 fucking anchors, so don't get too excited. He has to do all the fun stuff by himself. They low blow Jim, try to get him to denounce America. He won't. The match breaks down. Ray on his crutches is all alone with Saturn and Malenko. He low blows them with a crutch each. The 2 of them get rolled up. They take the crutches and beat Kidman up after the bell. Fucking nonsense.
And this feud goes on for the rest of the Revolution's existence.
Which isn't very long.
And also the story becomes, Dave, brace yourself for this one. The story becomes, is Shane Douglas fucking Tori Wilson?
Yeah. Man, for a guy who says he has no problem with women, Vince Russo is really preoccupied with who is currently fucking every woman on the roster.
But he's only allowed to have one on the roster, Dave, don't forget.
Yeah. Nash is wrestling the Wall now for reasons, and the NWO are all coming out with him. And this is our next match, Kevin Nash versus the Wall. Scott on commentary. Now, I did laugh at one line he had where he goes, whoa, let me get this straight. His mom called him the Wall.
Yeah.
It's pretty cute. Because I love the idea that like Scott Hall is literally just finding out this now and assumes that his name is like the Wall Jones or something.
I think it's Tanae like earnestly explains, well no, she did not call him that at his birth.
Yeah.
Kevin Nash took some bumps for the Wall. I mean, that's noteworthy.
Yeah. That said, the NWO comes out almost immediately with bats and kill him.
Yes. Scott Hall just randomly walks into the ring and like, that's it.
Yeah. It is mentioned that Sid killed Berlin after he tried to interfere and attack the Wall on Monday. Then we have the Wall because like he's got to get his shine back, and they do end up pushing this guy, like I said, in 2000. So they're trying to get some of his shine back by having him be all hardy and fight off the medics and tear apart backstage in a rage at being attacked. Then Then we have this is weird because it's shot like a sitcom. Nash is going for a shower. Scott goes into the physio room. Goldberg is like hiding behind a cupboard or something and attacks Scott. It cuts back to Nash singing the Dankeschön from Ferris Bueller. So Nash is next, gets attacked in the shower. Both of them are killed. And somebody who really fancied their oats as a filmmaker or the WCW production team tries to do the psycho shot of the blood draining down the drain with the suds from his shampoo.
All it's missing is, remember when The Simpsons did it?
Yeah.
And the background music.
Yeah. This leads to our main event, would you believe it? Bret Hart versus Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
I didn't care for it. Lasts fuck all time. And these were two men who clearly knew they were getting cut for time and just didn't really fucking bother.
You know what? I'm going to give Benoit credit. He had a ladder match at Starrcade.
Yeah.
He had a ladder match at Nitro. And then he went on to wrestle.
And these were still being taped on Tuesdays.
I was just going to say, on Tuesday, he wrestled Bret Hart in like I think it's like a 7-minute match. If that. And yeah, I'll give Benoit that credit. Hart, as we know, is like suffering fucking concussion at this point.
Yeah. And also doesn't give a fuck.
Do you know what? It's kind of sad that Bret's most consistent run in this company would take place while he had a fucking concussion. Because I don't know if you remember this, Dave, but Bret Hart never wrestled back to back previously.
Yeah. The whole thing in the last 2 years is that he wrestles for a couple of weeks, then he's off TV for months.
Yeah.
And like seldom he would make appearances on like successive TV shows, but I can't remember the last time he did like a Nitro Thunder.
And he's done it the last 2 weeks with pay-per-view in as well.
Yeah. And yeah, like I said, with a fucking horrifying, ultimately career-ending head injury.
Yeah, the match is total fucking nothing. Benoit gets the crossface locked in, and I did like this as he has the crossface in. Jarrett just walks in, elbow bonk to the head as the crossface is in.
Yeah. Now, also the debut of the silver guitar.
Yes.
Which would become the staple. Eventually it would be the silver guitar with slap nuts stenciled on the back. Branding. Goldberg comes out. Jarrett, for his part, he takes this spear and is absolutely murdered by it.
Great spear.
It's a great spear. Bret runs away into a car. Then, one of the dumbest things anyone has ever done. Goldberg comes out and he's attacking Dr. Claw's car.
Yep.
This is an infamous moment in latter WCW history. Goldberg, it has been revealed in the weeks and months and years since, insisted that the glass not be gimmicked in the limo. That he was going to shatter this for real. And it takes him a few goes, but he does. Ultimately lacerating, I believe, an artery.
Yes.
And seemingly, by all accounts, was very lucky not to lose the arm below the elbow. Mm-hmm. Such was the level of injury he did himself here. You don't realize at first that he's done it because his back is to you, and he does the kind of like he's not throwing straight punches. He's like throwing kind of like elbows and forearms.
Well, he's supposed to have that gimmick in his hand, wasn't he? In his knuckle.
Yeah.
Like the steel bar to smash the window.
So he's kind of swinging the arm out from his body at the window, so you don't see it impact. You don't realize until he goes up to the hood, and he does like a King Kong pounding on the hood. And as soon as the cut hand or the cut arm, because it's along the forearm that he's lacerated, like eviscerated, really. As soon as he slams his arm, a fucking a spray of blood, like something out of a fucking horror movie, comes out, and like so much blood in one smack that Goldberg pauses and looks at it.
It's fucking horrifying. Like, it's genuinely disturbing just how much blood comes out of his arm.
Yeah. Oh, it's so grisly.
Yeah.
There is a note about it. If you'll permit me a second, there is a note about it in the Observer. What do you think about the, like, I guess, like, the him nearly dying kind of puts a different tint on it. But what did you think about the show closing angle in general? Like, I don't think, my personal thought has always been, is like, it didn't add anything to the angle that he broke the window. It's not like it was like, oh, Goldberg's a tough guy, as if I didn't know that.
Well, Goldberg on the show said he was going to take out the NWO. So he took out National Hall backstage. He took out Jarrett in the ring with the spear. And he's chasing down Bret. That's fine. But, like, why is he attacking this random fucking white limo? Like, that's never stopped. Like, I know they say that the powers to be said he'd be in his white limo. But, like, I'm assuming there's not just one white limo backstage.
I mean, look, it's WCW. There's Hummers and limos all over the fucking shop. It's hard to say. Bill Goldberg was injured from glass cuts doing an angle at the end of the Thunder show taped on 12/21, and at press time was in a Salisbury, Maryland hospital, not released yet, and there were no details regarding how seriously he was injured, other than he had full feeling in his fingers and hands, which was considered a good sign since the tremendous blood loss reminded a lot of people of the David Finlay leg injury, which, as you'll remember, Finlay nearly lost his leg.
Fucking hell.
This was not an angle, even though it came during one. The show-long storyline was that Goldberg was going to take out every member of the NWO. He finally got to Russo in a white limo in the parking lot as the show ended, and was, while wearing his shoot fighter gloves, punching out one window after another. The flying glass apparently cut deeply into his tricep, so further up the arm than I thought. And there was a massive amount of blood flowing, and the towels were drenched in Goldberg's blood before he was taken away.
That's like, it just sounds horrible.
So I think we'll get the follow up next week about the details of the injury, probably. But yeah, I mean, overall thoughts on the show, Lee, winners and losers.
I mean, the fact that they no longer have IKEA wrestling is a good thing. And they have Paige cutting his promos. I mean, there's something positive, I suppose.
Unfortunately, there will be a lot more of him wrestling in 2000, but because it's Russo, the matches have gotten dramatically shorter.
I mean, 3 count is an all-time great gimmick, as we've already discussed, so that's a good thing for us going forward. Thank Abbott had an impressive debut in the fact that he knocked out a skeleton in record time.
Yeah.
There was some good, like, hang on. Nothing was good other than 3 count, but for us personally, I think there was some good stuff here. I still think the show was dog shit overall, though.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%. On this show, the finish counter by Ludwig Borger brought... I just completely blanked out there. I was just like... Do you ever have that moment where a show is so bad where I'm just like, I actually pause going, is the show over?
Oh no, the show's definitely over.
The show's definitely over because it feels like it's that crazy stairs painting. I'll never actually escape from it. Anyway, the finish counter brought to you by Ludwig Borge assures me that we had 8 matches on this show with 1 clean finish. 3 disqualifications or countouts, 3 interference spots leading directly to a finish, and 1 other, which was a no contest for killing a skeleton. Thank you so much for listening to another episode of Days of Thunder. It is finally over, I am told. We shall see you again in 1 week at alargemanappears.com, in 2 weeks here on Voices of Wrestling. But until then, be well, stay safe. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye. Thanks everyone for listening to another episode of Days of Thunder. Days of Thunder was produced by Lee Malone and edited by me, Dave Ryan. Keep up to date with the show and find all the ways to listen to us. You can follow us on Twitter at WCW Thunderpod or click the Linktree link in our Twitter bio or in the show notes. I am at the Day to Dave on Twitter and Lee is at Malone_713. Days of Thunder is a part of the Voices of Wrestling podcast network. Follow the VOW network anywhere good podcasts are sold for more fine podcasts that you can shake a stick at. Thanks.
Do you like wrestling trivia? Then check out the 5-Star Match Game, the Pro Wrestling Quiz Show. I'm Joe Gagney, and every episode, I grill 3 contestants with 5 rounds of power-packed wrestling trivia. We have over 30 evergreen episodes in the archives covering WWE, AEW, Japan, Mexico, and much, 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 much more. Play along at home and check it out today.